So I'm Helen. If you haven't been here before, if this is your first time, I'm Helen Elizabeth, and I love talking to you about things that encourage you. I want to help you. And so if you have a topic that you think of, please send it to me in a direct message. You can do a comment, but I'll probably see it better if you send it in a direct message. So let's just start out with prayer, and then we'll get going. So dear Heavenly Father, thank you so much for today. And thank you for this time that we get to spend together. Thank you for Instagram Live that we get to just come together all in one place from all over the country, all over the world, and spend time with one another, getting to know you better, and growing and becoming our best new selves, Lord. Give me the words to say that show your wisdom, but also help all of these people. And Lord, I pray that you would soften their hearts to hear your voice. We love you so much. Amen. Amen. All right, let's get started. And yay for a podcast. Yes, I'm so excited. I am writing a book too. So the book will hopefully be out before December. I would like to release it in December. But the podcast will hopefully start this month. So that way, if you can't do this, if you can't join here, then you can always join or listen to the podcast later. So, all right, so today is on emotional health. And emotional health is one of those topics that is so wide, it's so vast, but it kind of all comes down to me. It all comes down to where we are spiritually. And because at least in my experience, whenever I've struggled with emotional health, whenever I felt like I wasn't myself anymore, like maybe I was struggling with, just being mad all the time, or I was upset, or I was just dealing with stuff. Every time that I was doing that, I know for a fact that I was not in a great place spiritually. But that's not to say that if you aren't in a great place spiritually, you aren't necessarily not going to be great emotionally, or you are going to be great emotionally. Sometimes, just like it talks about this in the Bible, you can be so focused on doing all the spiritual things right, like going to church, reading my Bible, doing all this stuff, that we miss the heart of it, that we miss that like feeling where we feel close to God. And when we do that, then our emotional health isn't going to be great. So it kind of all depends on where you are spiritually, I believe. So the first thing that so I've gotten several of these messages talking about kind of topics that relate to emotional health. So the first one is forgiveness. I think forgiveness is one of the heaviest topics. We've talked about this in my Instagram lives before, how hard it is to forgive, right? It's so hard when someone's hurt you or wronged you in some way, and you know that how they've treated you is wrong, or maybe your spouse is maybe not doing everything that you feel like they should be doing in the relationship, or you feel like you're going above and beyond, or even a friendship. Maybe you're trying really hard in a friendship and it's just not being reciprocated. Whatever it is, there's a hardness of heart that comes whenever we don't forgive. And when you don't forgive, at least in my experience, I had a pastor tell me what did he say? Forgiveness is like a poison. That's what he said. Forgiveness is like poison. It does nothing to the other person, but it kills you. And it's so true. I've realized, even thinking about this talk and these topics, how many people maybe I haven't forgiven in my life that I didn't even realize I was holding on to that. And that weighs me down. I don't know about you, but it weighs me down when I can think of names and people that, man, I need to make that right. I need to make sure that we're in a good place. It doesn't mean we have to be best friends. It doesn't mean we have to be close again, but we need to be in a good place. I also think it's important if you've gone through something extremely difficult or tragic even, I shared that I was in an abusive relationship, and, in that case, I had to find in my heart to forgive that guy. And I'm so thankful that I did. I mean, I don't know what he's doing now. I don't know anything about him, really, but he did send me an email a long time afterwards apologizing that that was just something that he was doing, apologizing to people he felt like he hurt, and asked me not to respond to him. But before then, I had to find a place in my heart that said, I don't know what's going on in his life. I don't know where he's at right now, or whatever it is. But God cares about everyone. He desires everybody to be close to him. And so hating what he did is not going to do anything to make me better. In fact, when I decided it was time to forgive him and move forward, I grew and I felt like I was better because I let that heaviness leave me, that I didn't even realize was holding me down. I let that leave my relationships. I didn't take that out on other guys I might date, or my friendships. I didn't let that affect my self-esteem. There's so many things when we hold on to unforgiveness that we don't realize how it affects us and how it affects our other relationships. And have you ever been around somebody, when you're talking about somebody you both know? I think this happens a lot with girls. Like you have two, like you're friends with this person, but you're also friends with this person. These two people don't get along, and so whenever you're with one person and they kind of talk bad about the other person, and you don't really participate because it's your friend. But it's not a pretty thing. Anytime that we hold on to that anger towards someone and just bring up the fact that we're angry at them for what they did to us, it's not a beautiful part of our soul, if that makes sense. Like nobody's gonna just think like, man, I wish I want to be like that person, or wow, and maybe they don't think anything of it. But I know whenever I've allowed anger to reside within me and I talked about it with people, I just didn't feel like I was bringing everybody up. And one thing that Andrew and I talk a lot about is when our speech, what we say, how we act should lift up others all the time. There's nothing to say that cussing's bad. There's nothing to say that any of those things bad, but it's kind of the concept is it making others better? So when I talk bad about somebody because they've hurt me or wronged me, is that making the people around me better, or am I bringing them down? And the more that I bring people down to try to be low with me, the worse that I feel. And that's going to damage my emotional health. And so today, I guess the first topic that we've talked about is forgiveness. And I just want to encourage you, whatever anger you're holding in towards people, and some of it may be valid. It may be very valid. Maybe your family didn't treat you right. Maybe your friends really hurt you, whatever it is. Maybe make a note of that. If you're still doing a prayer journal, maybe write that down and just kind of talk to God about that and ask God to help you release that anger, right? Release that unforgiveness. And sometimes for me, I have to remember, wow, think about all the stuff that I've done to other people. Think about how I've wronged, and sometimes I didn't mean to. I really didn't mean to wrong some people. I can remember things I've done in my past and I'm like, oh, I hate that I did that to that person. And so there's always that aspect, and maybe they don't care, but there's always that aspect they might not have meant to do it, or if they did, they feel sorry for it now. So maybe pray and journal about, God, how can I release this? I don't have to be their best friend again, but how can I deal with this? How can I forgive them and move forward with my life? Which then leads me to, let's see, I'm going to go to comparison, and then we're going to go to anxiety. So comparison. I've heard it said like comparison is the thief of joy. It's one of those things that when we compare ourselves, and this comes from a pageant girl, right? I went to Miss USA, which is basically like ultimate place for comparison. But the year that I won Miss Arkansas, I realized one thing, and I've heard this said a lot, but I didn't really embrace it until the year I won. Whenever you're in a pageant, it's so easy to look at everybody else and say they're better. Like, even in life, you can say, wow, that person has it together. She's skinnier. Has a better family. She has this, she has that. Insert whatever it is that you're comparing your life to another person for. But the year that I won Miss Arkansas USA was the year that I walked in and I genuinely loved who I was. I genuinely loved who I was because I knew that I had put in the work. I had studied, what I believed and why I believed it so that I could have an awesome interview. I had been working out and eating healthy, and I learned about nutrition. I learned about working out. I did all these things, and I finally put together a wardrobe that I picked out that I loved, and I felt really embraced who I was, and I didn't care what anybody else thought, and I stopped trying to be like her and just said, this is Helen, and if you like it, then I love that you like it. If you don't, that's okay, I don't care. And that year, it was just different. And that was the year that I won. And I think about that a lot because I think about this in real and everyday life. If you can think of somebody in your life that you look up to or you respect or you think like, wow, she's got it together. A lot of times they're not perfect. No one's perfect. But a lot of times it's not like they're like the prettiest girl ever, or they're the wealthiest, or they're the insert whatever you want, But there's something special about them that stands out. Like you see it and you're like, there's just, when I'm around that person, man, they're just They make me desire to be better. And I believe that's the same type of thing. They're comfortable in their skin, they're comfortable in who they are, and they love and embrace that person. And when we do that same thing, when we work on, let me just become my best self, instead of how can I be like her? How can I have what she has? What do I have to do to be like that? How can I get this or that or the other? But we can say, God, I am thankful for what you've created me to be, who I am, what I look like today, what I have today. And we're thankful for what we have rather than looking to what we want all the time, right? When we can do that and kind of focus in and say, okay, who is this? Who am I? How can I be my best self? And who's the girl that I want to be that I would just love? When you focus on that, and that's your main focus, comparison is no longer an issue. At least for me, I've noticed that. Comparison is no longer an issue for me whenever I'm good with who I am, when I know that I'm working, when I'm trying to become my best self. I no longer have to look at another girl and say, man, I wish I looked like that. Man, I wish I was like that. Man, I wish I had what she had. Man, I wish I had her relationship. When I'm doing what I need to be doing, no matter if I'm perfect or not, I'm happy and I'm glad I don't have to compare. And so today, maybe again, when you're journaling, writing down about everything with forgiveness, maybe talk about this. What areas in my life can I just start doing little things to improve, to make myself feel better so I don't have to compare? Because who you are and who you were created to be is perfect. And that is who God meant for you to be. And so comparing is going to do nothing but steal your joy and make you not be able to go on the path and the plan that God has for you. So again, I guess to sum that up, or emotional health-wise, when it comes to comparing, let's try to be our best selves. Instead of looking to other people, let's try to say, who is the best Helen? Or who is the best fill in the blank? Whatever your name is. But what do I love about myself? What can I highlight about myself? What can I show people about myself? It doesn't have to be that you have all the best clothes, all the best things, the best relationship, but how you handle yourself within all of that. That's what matters, and that's what people are going to see. No one really cares if you have all the nice stuff, if you have the perfect relationship, if you have a joy about you that they love, right? And that joy comes from Jesus and allowing Jesus to fill us up, to fill our hearts up so we know that we are beautiful and perfect because of Jesus, not because of what we have or what we've done. And that's something, there's a lyric from my favorite band, Relient K. That's been my favorite band forever. But it says, we could be blinding. We could be blinding depending on the amount of you I choose to reflect. And I love that lyric because it's so true. We could be blinding depending on the amount of Jesus we choose to reflect to others. And when it comes to that, we have no reason to compare, because we have the ultimate source of beauty and self-worth and everything that you could ever want when we allow Jesus to be the ultimate part of our heart, guiding us and directing us every single day. So that's kind of how I want to sum that up. Comparison is going to steal your joy. So rather than looking at what other people have, look in and say, okay, I want to become the best me. What's the best Helen? Because there can be I know people say that all the time. No one else can be Helen, right? No one else can be you. But how can I just elate that person? How can I show what God meant for me to be? And the more you spend time with Jesus, the more time you spend diving into your spiritual life, the more that Jesus is going to reveal those things to you and allow his light to shine out of you, which is ultimately going to be absolutely beautiful, and everyone's going to notice that. So that's comparison. And now I'm going to go to anxiety. I've talked about anxiety a lot because we've all dealt with anxiety. I deal with anxiety a lot. Yesterday I was even dealing with anxiety. I mean, I'm just sitting here thinking yesterday, just like, am I doing enough? I need to be doing this and that and that and that. And like, there's, especially when you're trying to start a ministry and all these different things are happening. I'm doing YouTube, I'm doing this, I'm doing Instagram, I'm doing podcasts, now I'm speaking. Now, when you have so many things going on, it's easy just to feel like I'm always dropping the ball. And, for your life, you probably feel the same way. I think I heard someone say, if you're excelling in one area of your life, you're probably failing in another. And it's because we're human. We can't juggle everything. We can't do everything. But we can't allow that to dictate our emotional health. And that's kind of what I came down to yesterday, because, of course, I was kind of laughing because this is what I was going to talk about today. And I started thinking, I'm having anxiety. Like, I'm dealing with anxiety today. And I know I have to talk about it tomorrow. And I knew that was just Satan kind of just trying to like drive at me, like, how dare you try to talk about this to anybody. But I was able yesterday to sit down and kind of stop myself and say, okay, God, the last time I talked about this, I said, in the middle of the night when I stayed up late, trying to like get right with you, my mind was just going and going and going, and I was worrying about everything. I chose in that moment, instead of like going to look at my emails or write my to-do list that I need to remember for the next day, I went straight to my Bible. I went straight to my Bible app and just started reading my Bible until I was really tired and went to sleep. And so yesterday I was trying to do all these things and get everything done, send all these emails, and I was feeling that anxiety feeling again. And I dropped everything and I went to my kitchen table, I got my Bible, I got my prayer journal, and I just dedicated and allowed myself to have 30 minutes with God. And said, God, I don't care if I hear the buzz of my phone telling me you're getting emails or you're getting things you need to be doing, people you need to respond to. It's like all those things do not compare to you. And I know that the only way I can do any of these things are if I'm dependent upon you. If I spend this time with you. And after I did that, I just felt this sense of, it was such a pure joy that was able to I kind of laughed, kind of cried a little bit, and was able to be like, thank you, God, for letting me see how little this is, how all these things that I allow to stress my brain out, how truly insignificant it is. And yes, I'm doing great things for you, but at the end of the day, you just want time with me. And when I don't spend that time with you and I allow the things that I want to do every single day in my checklist to take over my time, yes, I'm always going to be filled with anxiety because I can't finish that checklist. I'm never going to finish that checklist. The only way that I can ever do that is with God's help. The only way that I can get through things, the only way that I'm ever going to be successful or be good at anything or be able to juggle a million things is going to be because I allow Jesus to help me and give me the strength to do so. And if I'm not filling myself up with him, there's no way that I can emotionally and physically handle all of these things. So I know it's been said a million times, but I truly and genuinely want all of you and myself to understand that the only way we can deal with anxiety and get through anxious moments is by filling ourselves up with God, by stopping, by saying, okay, I'm having anxiety, I'm freaking out. I'm going to stop right now, whatever I'm doing, and I'm going to go to God. If you can't leave the situation, maybe that's prayer right in the moment. If you can leave the situation, I really recommend going and trying to go to a quiet place and spend time with God for a little bit. And I've also noticed every morning that I spend time with him immediately. I'm not saying you have to get up at 5 a.m. There's some of you that do, and go you. I am not a 5 a.m.er. I am like a 6:45, 7-ish a.m.er. So, I get up with my husband. I help him get his breakfast and everything together. We do all that. And then I spend time with God. And the days I don't do that, the days that I allow my to-do list to control me, those are the days that I feel it. Those are the days that I see oh wow, God, I'm out of it. I'm not in a good place. And so if all you have time for is 5 minutes, then just give them 5 minutes. Read one chapter of the Bible or you spend 5 minutes journaling. Because genuinely, I believe that's the only way we can feel better and deal with anxiety, is by getting our spiritual self right. When our spiritual self is right, our emotional self will be right. And I know that's basic, but maybe you just needed to hear that today, because I know that I need it. Even though we know it, so it's kind of those things even though we know the simple things that everyone knows, anything worth doing is going to be hard. You know what I mean? It's going to be it's going to take time. We know that, but then we hear it and we're like, yeah, this is really hard. It's really hard to do this. Same concept. We may know that we need to spend time with God, but it's so easy to let that go. It's so easy to say, I can't do that today. I don't have time. I don't really feel like it. I don't feel like spending time with God. And I've struggled with that a lot in my life. It's just reading my Bible because I need to and being like, I don't really feel like doing this right now. I'm thinking about everything else I need to be doing, and when I do that, I kind of take a step away and I allow myself to go do something, but I always try to come back because, at the end of the day, I have to think about the fact that God worked everything out in this universe to allow me to be here. He's worked everything out in this universe to allow you to be here. right now at the specific time, at the specific place. And when I think about that, it humbles my heart to be able to spend time with him and genuinely be thankful and desire to do that. Because I just feel like ever since I lost my late husband, I've realized everything comes down to perspective. It's all about how you view life, how you decide to see it. If you can look at everything like, okay, what is the gift in this? What can I learn? And that's what I've started looking at my relationship with Jesus is, instead of just being like, oh, I want to have a relationship with Jesus because I want to go to heaven, I started looking at it like, wow, you allowed me to be here. You allowed me to be adopted. You allowed me to get a good education and to have all these cool experiences and have this opportunity, and yes, like, how dare I not spend time with you? How dare I not desire to be close to you? And every time I do that, it always humbles me to the point that I not just want to out of guilt, but I desire to out of love. And I think that's where our relationship, like on our spiritual side, our spiritual health, when we can look like at our spiritual life in that way. Like, I desire a relationship with you out of love rather than to get something or to make my life better or to go to heaven. But truly just saying, God, because I love you, because of what you've done for me, God, I just want to spend time with you. When we can get that right, all these things that I'm talking about, all of that will be covered. Forgiveness will be easy. Anxiety will go away. Comparison won't matter. It's all about getting that spiritual self right in order to get the emotional self right. And looking at it not out of legalism, what can I get? What do I have to do to get right with God? But God, here is my heart. I give it to you. I want you to have it, and I need your help. That's how we're going to get better emotionally.